The political crisis has resulted in action from the ambassadors residing in Tirana, with both the EU representative Luigi Soreca and Germany's Susanne Schutz attending meetings at the Blue headquarters. Rapporteur for Albania in the European Parliament, Knut Fleckenstein, urged Albania to continue the pursuit of justice reforms, advising politicians to be more prudent and democratic in their behaviour. Justice Minister Etilda Jonaj announced administrative measures against 25 court officials from Durrës following investigations carried out into their practices. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock on Wednesday the 20th of February 2019. Welcome to the English edition of Aura News. My name is Alexandra and I'm here to bring you the day's top stories from across the country translated into English. The opposition's decision to leave their mandates behind has caused a stir amongst the diplomatic community in Tirana. The representative of the European Union, Luigi Soreca, held a head-to-head meeting today at the Blue headquarters with Democratic Party Chair Lulzim Basha, where he sought dialogue from politics. In regards to Thursday's protest, Soreca implored that all involved steer clear from acts of violence. Soreca said that the European Union has been quite clear in their explanation to the DP chair regarding their position. The ambassador added that it is important to talk, to discuss, and that the EU remains hopeful that the protest tomorrow proceeds without violence and with democratic processes prevailing above all. Earlier, the German ambassador to Albania, Susanne Schutz, met with Lulzim Basha, also for the purpose of discussing the actions of burning mandates and the planned protest of tomorrow. Following this meeting, which took place at the Blue headquarters, Schutz also met with the Democratic Party's ally and chair of the Socialist Movement for Integration, Monica Kruamadi. The rapporteur for Albania in the European Parliament, Knut Fleckenstein, held the first meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs since the newly appointed Gent Sakai took over the role. Reflecting on the encounter in a post via Twitter, Fleckenstein wrote, "First meeting with new Acting Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of Albania today. We had a good exchange on views on justice reform and the current situation in Tirana." Earlier, Fleckenstein commented on the opposition's decision to burn parliamentary mandates. He noted that it is not the first time that the country has faced such a situation as this, with the Albanian opposition willing to give up their work from the parliament. According to him, nothing has changed over the last 5 years in this regard. He added that it is the opposition's duty to provide an alternative to current policy in Parliament and, if they consider it necessary, even outside the Parliament. At the end of the day, the right remains with each member of Parliament to decide for themselves whether they want to give up the mandate given to them by the Albanian people. The President of the Republic, Mehta, gave an interview for the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle during his stay in Germany. The President has talked about the political situation in our country, on recent protests and on the opposition's decision to burn their mandates. President Mehta highlighted that the opposition should take a step back, while the ruling majority should take 2 steps back. Asked for his assessment of the domestic political situation in the wake of the violent anti-government protest which occurred at the weekend, President Mehta answered, "The escalation of protests, divisive politics or confrontational actions, especially those which take place outside government institutions, equate to undesirable events. This is further compounded when we take into consideration that Albania is only a few months away from EU member states deciding whether or not to open accession negotiations for our country. It is high time for reflection by all parties so they can have a different approach, leaving unwanted confrontations aside." The German media outlet noted that the decision by opposition MPs to renounce their mandates seemed to aggravate or deteriorate the local political situation and was asked for President Mehta's opinion on the crisis. Mehta answered, "I am of the opinion that extreme actions do not serve democracy. They do not serve to strengthen institutions nor our country's European integration, which is on the wish list of each Albanian citizen. We remain hopeful that such events do not further contribute to emigration, especially in relation to the youth and the strong talent of the country. It is time the opposition takes a step back, but I also think it's a time for the majority, the government and the Prime Minister, to take 2 steps back. They have to realise that the key responsibilities for the country's governance are theirs." It is their duty to respect independent institutions and not to influence the creation of the new justice institutions. They should be an example of the fight against corruption, taking into account the many events that have shocked the public opinion, because in the end, the excuses will not be valuable, useful to none, and in our case, could result in the missed possibility to enter the EU. The German interviewer went on to ask Mehta what his concluding message was concerning the opposition protest to take place on Thursday. It is of importance that any protest is a peaceful one, and those who organise it take on the appropriate responsibilities. It is shameful for provocations to occur during the protests for any reason. Regarding the agreement between Kosovo and Serbia, which has even seen suggestions raised for border correction, Mehta was asked about his stance on the ongoing dialogue between the two states. I am a firm believer of dialogue, including in this difficult situation. Communication should centre in achieving the mutual goals of both parties, in this case, a common European future. I do not encourage any barriers or added difficulties that could negatively impact the dialogue between the two parties. Dialogue should be established on a fair and equal footing, not by exerting pressure towards one another, Mehta concluded on the topic. Justice Minister Itilda Jornai announced that administrative measures will be taken against 25 port officials in Durrës following an inspection audit. The Anti-Corruption Task Force investigated the work practices of the employees at the Port of Durrës, proposing disciplinary measures for violations found involving both directors and employees, along with disciplinary action recommended against the Director of the Port Authority for violations as outlined in the audit report. Recommendations have also been made against the Public Prosecution, Head of the Territorial Administration Sector and the former Human Resources Manager. In addition to proposals for dismissals, the Anti-Corruption Task Force also recommended 21 written warnings be issued against specialists across various sectors of the Port Authority in Durrës. Seven additional prosecutors have applied to be part of the Albanian Special Prosecution of Anti-Corruption, or SPAC, bringing the number of candidates to 23. While the race to become part of the SPAK was meant to be open until tomorrow, the list has seen some added names of importance. Donika Prela, the Chief Prosecutor of Serious Crimes, also applied today to be part of the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecution, although it wasn't that long ago that she was facing many accusations as she passed through the vetting process, although she was reconfirmed for duty. The announcement was made today by the High Council of the Prosecution, where it was confirmed that another application was made by Altin Dumani, a prosecutor of Tirana's appellate prosecution, and Elisabeta Imerai, also a prosecutor at the appellate prosecution of Tirana. Meanwhile, a further candidate was found in Enkeleda Osmani, a prosecutor in the First Instant Court of Durrës. The High Council of the Prosecution also confirmed the candidacy of Tirana's prosecutor Elida Kachkini and the prosecutor Enkeleda Milonai from Elbasan, as well as Maxim Sota from Vlora. The date of applications was to be received initially until the 6th of February, but this deadline was postponed until the 21st of February because not enough applications had been received. So far, the Council has now seen 23 prosecutors apply for the total of 15 vacancies. The new institution is expected to be formed with the highest regard from the public expectation, as it is a special anti-corruption structure that will put senior officials and politicians ahead of their responsibilities. All companies awarded with tenders or concessions will now be required to employ a certain number of job seekers from regional and local employment offices. This legal obligation will place conditions on companies that receive public funds to employ staff who are in the process of seeking work via state offices. The decision will come into force following the approval of the draft law on employment promotion, which is expected soon. This content of the redrafted law is to be presented are also expected to regulate the provisions concerning the employment of persons with disabilities, a point which had been omitted from the existing version of the law. It is understood the law will be updated to force all companies with at least 50 employees to also employ a worker with disabilities who has registered as a job seeker at the Labour Office. Deputy Finance Minister Dinah Sorensen explained during the discussion with the Health Committee that there is a real lack of information on the shortfalls in the labour market. On Monday, the Commission will also bring together stakeholders to discuss the draft law for the promotion of employment. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Oranews, thank you and good night.